There are a lot of question marks surrounding your Golden State Warriors heading into this upcoming season. I'm going to try to answer a couple of them on today's show. 5 burning questions surrounding your Dubs. We're going to get right into them in just a moment. But first, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are almost on our next milestone of 98,000 subscribers, on the road to 100K and getting that plaque from YouTube. So if you love your Golden State Warriors and you want free Warriors content every single day, all off season long and into the regular season as well, go down below and hit that subscribe button. We need about 400 more. Burning question number 1 as you're watching Warriors Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Tyler Smith. What will Jonathan Kuminga's role be once his restricted free agency is resolved? We know that there are a couple of different paths that this thing could go down as Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors remain at an impasse on an agreement to bring him back for this upcoming season. They have cut off all sign and trade talks, and all signs point to Kuminga being on this basketball team. The question is, how is he going to be on this basketball team, and what's that going to look like once he gets back in blue and gold? The current options as it stands right now, 2 years, $45 million with that team option is the Warriors' offer. That carries with it a no-trade clause. Golden State's only signing pen to paper, though, if Kuminga waives that no-trade clause. Thus, Kuminga is threatening to sign the qualifying offer of $8 million, and that carries the automatic no-trade clause that cannot be waived, and he will essentially be a lame duck sitting until he enters unrestricted free agency next offseason. Now, the Warriors could eventually give in to Kuminga's demands and adjust their offer a little bit, maybe guarantee a little bit more money in year number 2. But we're not looking at what Kuminga's free agency outcome is going to be. One thing is for sure, Jonathan Kuminga will be on this team this upcoming season. So it's really semantics how it's all going to work out. Yes, it could be really bad news for the Golden State Warriors if he accepts the qualifying offer, but at this point in time, I don't think it's ever going to get there. He either gives in to Golden State or they end up, kind of restructuring that deal to bring him back on something a little bit more lucrative. Dalton Johnson said this, though, about the on-court fit with Kuminga. He said, Steve Kerr said to us at the end of this past season that if Jonathan is back, that at the beginning of the season, he will use the 4-man combination of Steph, JK, Jimmy, and Draymond. Just at the start of the season, at least, he's going to have to experiment a bit and see what it looks like. Remember what Steve Kerr said here as well. When he did come back, Kuminga, from that ankle injury, it was a tough fit. But we didn't have the luxury of just experimenting and giving that more of a runway. So if JK comes back next year, we have to look at lineups with both JK and Jimmy for sure. Well, and then Dalton Johnson continues, says, well, we know it didn't look great. Obviously, it was crazy. It just didn't work out. If you bring in a stretch 5 like Horford, that could help. But Jimmy's not a 2. JK is not a 2. Okay, do you put Draymond to the bench and start an Iguodala role for him? There's a lot to be worked out here, whether or not Jonathan Kuminga is going to be a starter or he's going to come off of the bench this upcoming season. The role is still very murky, and it could be largely dependent on what he ends up doing in free agency. If he accepts that qualifying offer, what's Steve Kerr going to need to play him big-time minutes for and meet his demands as far as his role in the rotation goes? Now, Kerr talked about actually playing all 4 together on the floor, Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, and Kuminga. So we'll see how often they do that. That would be a really big lineup. Would there be a lot of ball handling done from Draymond and Jimmy? I presume so. And Steph would be running off of the ball. Horford would be there to stretch the floor, and Kuminga could kind of get his work in as well. Look, my answer as far as what Jonathan Kuminga is going to do for Golden State here, I think they are going to come to some compromise at the end of the day. It just makes sense for Golden State. If they want to make a move and move him down the line, you want to have as much salary to match and bring back other assets as you can. So $8 million and him just entering unrestricted free agency next offseason is off of the table for the Dubs. I think he plays around 30 minutes per game, especially at the start of the season, when Kerr has this amount of time to be able to experiment with these lineups and play your best players on the floor at the same time. Who knows? Maybe the big old lineup works out and Jimmy at the 2 we turn the clock back to 2015 or something like that. But at the end of the day, I think he's traded mid-season, and the Warriors try to get some more complementary pieces back. I can't see Kuminga playing that Aaron Gordon complementary style role. He sees himself as an all-star, dominating the basketball, and I just don't think that's going to be the best course of action for the Golden State Warriors. So they'll try to look to trade him mid-season. What do you guys think, though? How does this all shake out? What happens with Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors? What kind of contract agreement is decided upon? Does he accept the qualifying offer? Do the Warriors compromise and move their offer a little bit? Or does Kuminga give in to Golden State's demands? And then what is his role in the rotation? I think he's going to be that super sub 6-man, or they could try some starting lineups with him as well. That's all going to be kind of fluid as the season begins, and as we know, it's how Steve Kerr kind of likes to start the beginnings of his seasons. Burning question number 2. What version of Jimmy Butler are we going to get this upcoming year? Remember, Jimmy was an awesome addition, obviously, once he got traded to Golden State. And then the playoffs came around, and he still was producing at a pretty high level. And then in the middle of that Houston Rockets series, he goes down with the pelvic contusion and misses a game. And he really was never the same player the rest of the postseason run. Really looked hobbled in that Minnesota series, especially once he was relied upon so heavily once Steph went down. And we know Jimmy Butler isn't getting any younger either. The stars on this Golden State Warriors roster are all 35 plus. And Jimmy specifically, he turns 36 in less than a month from now. So it's once you get past 36 in the NBA, you could clearly see players start to deteriorate a little bit, and that is definitely cause for concern when you see him making 110 plus $1 million over the next 2 seasons. Like I am weary, but at the end of the day, Butler has been a seamless fit in Golden State. I don't expect him to totally fall off a cliff here because we saw him, kind of at his full strength. When the Warriors traded for him, they needed to full sprint to make the playoffs, and they ended up getting knocked into the play-in tournament late in the season. But Butler was awesome, man. He shot the ball pretty efficiently, was a defensive menace, and the production only went up, albeit with more volume in the playoffs as well. Got close to that 20-point-per-game mark. He was still diming up. Like, there aren't a lot of players. Like, Jimmy is going to create an impact far beyond the box score, but at the same time, there's still not a lot of players that are averaging 18, 6, and 6 in this league while playing elite defense and both sides of the ball at a really high level. But my concern is what we've seen from Jimmy Butler over the past half decade or so, with him coasting through the regular season and whatnot. I don't think the Warriors this year are kind of stacked enough roster-wise to be able to allow Jimmy to kind of coast. He's going to be relied upon as a go-to option here, night in and night out. So they don't really have the talent down the depth of this roster to stack up big-time wins, especially in a really tough Western Conference over an 82-game season. So Butler's going to have to play a good bit, and it's a good thing that he doesn't really rely upon athleticism to get his success. Think about how many times he just tries to bait the defenders into getting up in the air and then getting to the free throw line, or just in general easier layups as the defense is so mesmerized by Jimmy Butler. He's got that elite basketball IQ to be able to push, move defenders basically with his eyes, kind of like a quarterback out there. So I don't really see his athleticism deteriorating, kind of making him a worse player out there on the basketball court. You could argue it can make him an overall more effective player in the Warriors system. Now, don't expect him to play 65-plus games this season. Don't expect him to qualify for awards or anything like that. I mean, at this point in his career, I'm sure he doesn't even care about that stuff. He just wants to win at the end of the day. And I'm sure the Warriors and Jimmy Butler himself will preserve his body, give ample rest, and do whatever it takes to make sure that he's 100% heading into whatever kind of postseason run that the Warriors will be on. Let's move on to burning question number 3, though, as the Warriors will be bringing in another big-time veteran this upcoming season, and presumably that's going to be Al Horford. Now, he's going to be the starting center as all the rumors and the speculation suggests. How much can the Warriors truly rely on Al Horford? Look, I think he's going to be a fantastic fit for this Warriors roster upcoming this season. He is the floor spacer, at least a reliable floor spacer, and two-way floor spacer at that center position. The Warriors have really lacked over this entire run, really. Think about back to the early Warriors championship run days. It was Andrew Bogut. It was Kevon Looney, guys who didn't really space the floor all that well. Now we saw Quentin Post this past year kind of get slotted into that role, and the Warriors offense was kind of really clicking when he was out there on the floor. Al Horford's just a souped-up version of Quentin Post, and he has been uber consistent over the last few seasons, man. He's shooting over 40% every single year from three-point range damn near, and he's still, being an elite rebounder, good around-the-rim defender. As far as his mobility goes around the perimeter, that's definitely deteriorating, but, the Warriors can't rely on this guy to play 35 minutes a night, and what they can rely on him to be is relatively healthy and durable as the season goes on. He's played 60 or more games in 10 of the last 11 seasons in his career. So, look, I'm not going to be expecting him to run out there and play 40 minutes a night, but I'm not going to be expecting him to miss extended time either for the Golden State Warriors. They'll try to preserve him as well, but that's another guy that you have to make sure is relied upon once the postseason comes around. As far as the bodies that are behind Al Horford on the depth chart, it isn't that great. I would love to see a big-time second-year leap from Quentin Post, especially on the defensive end with how disciplined he needs to be over there. He gets caught way too much in the air. I'm sure Jimmy Butler would have a field day against Quentin Post in practice, just baiting him with pump fakes. Trey Jackson-Davis, is he even an NBA player at this point? I don't know how many minutes he's going to command or if he's ever going to see time in the rotation next season. And then Draymond Green, I don't really want to see him playing at the center as much. as we did this past year. Yeah, you can go to some small ball lineups and whatnot. Horford's going to need rest. Post isn't going to be out there all the time. So you're going to need to play Draymond a little bit at least at the 5, but I'm not super confident in the depth behind Horford. If he goes down, we're going to have some major issues in the front court this year. Burning question number 4. What will Steve Kerr's rotation be like to start the season? Because we can't even speculate what the Warriors are going to look like post-trade deadline or anything like that. Like, Kuminga could be off the team. We could see a bunch of different players on this roster once the calendar turns to 2026. Well, let's just go through the roster real quick and like what the depth looks like. I really think the Warriors' depth at guard is really, really solid. You have Steph, obviously. Pods, I want to see what type of year 3 leap that he can take. Buddy Hield played awesome for you in the postseason, but not a guy you want to rely upon too consistently. Like, I'm not really looking for Buddy Hield to be in my starting rotation. To me, at D'Anthony Melton, how healthy is he going to be coming off that torn ACL? I think he was an awesome fit in Golden State. Eventually, down the line, I think he actually could be that starting 2 guard, and then GP2 as well. He could play 1, 2, 3, 4, wherever you want to throw him. What about the wings, though? And that's where I question a little bit of the depth on this roster. Jimmy Butler, I mean, you never know how much time he's going to miss during a regular season. Jonathan Kuminga, is he going to be on this roster past January 15th? Moses Moody, I'm very curious to see what his rotation spot looks like this upcoming year. He's been another guy who's been jostled around by Steve Kerr throughout his young career so far, but when he was a starter and when he got the opportunities last year, he took advantage of them, played really, really good ball on both ends. And then Guy Santos as well rounds out the wings there. One of the bigger wings on this roster, and I would love to see him get some burn as well. We know how Steph loves playing with him. He gives 110% effort. And then we go to the bigs, like we just talked about, Draymond, Al Horford, Quentin Post, and Trayce Jackson-Davis. I'm not super confident in this group, but Draymond and Al Horford, for the ages that they're at, still play some of the most elite defense in this league. So with that being said, we went through the entire kind of active roster here. What's the rotation going to look like for the Dubs? Well, obviously we know that the top 5 are pretty cemented. They're going to be playing 30-plus minutes a night. Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, Al Horford, and Jonathan Kuminga. Maybe Al plays somewhere in the realm of 25 to 30 minutes, and then you get Quentin Post a little bit more run there. But you have really kind of a logjam of guards that you have to find minutes for here because Buddy Hield, Brandon Podziemski, D'Anthony Melton, Moses Moody, like they're all very much deserving of substantial minutes, I would say, in an NBA rotation. And you see a player who I just talked about that's not on this list. Well, my big issue with this 10-man rotation, and maybe Steve Kerr does go to 11, but I don't want it to be that crowded. Guy Santos belongs in the basketball court, and he didn't make my 10-man rotation right there. So we'll see maybe which one of those guards eventually gets phased out of the rotation as the season goes along, and who could eventually be on the trade block when the calendar shifts to 2026. We got one more burning question in just a moment, but get hooked up with this awesome Warriors heavyweight tee. Chatsports.com/dubcity. I love the City Edition colorways that they had this year, and the prices are just can't beat. $35, you can't miss that. I think it's awesome. I'm going to get myself one for the watch parties next season. Chatsports.com/dubcity. That's chatsports.com/dubcity to get yours today. It's in the comments. It's in the description of today's video. We also get a portion of the proceeds every time you guys buy one of these. So if you want to support the channel and look fresh, go to chatsports.com/dubcity today. Burning question number 5, and this is like probably the biggest question overall, overarching this upcoming season because it goes beyond the Kuminga stuff. Can Steph Curry drag this team to the NBA Finals one more time? This is it. This is probably the season. Maybe you could argue 26, 27, but Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, they're going to be 1 year older. And who knows how injuries are going to work, how their health is going to be after another 82-game season plus a postseason run. What we know is Steph Curry is going to answer the call. How much is he going to be able to do, though, for this Warriors team? Well, we know he played amazingly in that postseason series against the Rockets, regardless of, some nights where he was really off. I remember that game where he was like 0 for 10, or I think he had like 3 points, and it was his lowest playoff scoring game in like a decade or something like that, or maybe of his entire career. I forget what it was, but he struggled in one of those games and was still able to amass 24, 6, and 6 on 40% shooting from the three-point range on 10.5 attempts. Like, it was awesome. He was getting bullied around there on the basketball court. I love what I saw from Steph, but he still also remains one of the only consistent, and I say consistent because there are some players that can do it, consistent on-ball threats on this Warriors team. And some of the Giants in the Western Conference just have more firepower than what the Warriors have offensively. And at the end of the day, that's what wins basketball games at this time in the NBA. Elite shot making is just better than elite defense, and the Warriors, I don't think, have enough elite shot makers to compete with some of these teams. OKC Thunder, they got, you could say, better because they're just a year older and bringing everybody back next season. The Rockets replaced their 2 biggest playoff droppers with Kevin Durant. So obviously they're going to be way better than the 7 games that you took them to last year. Denver, just probably the best version of the Denver Nuggets that we've seen in the Jokic tenure. They had Cam Johnson replacing Michael Porter Jr. That's an unbelievable swap, and I think they have a good chance at winning the title. The Clippers got a whole heck of a lot better. They bring in Brook Lopez. They bring in John Collins. They bring in there was another big time one that I'm totally missing right now as well. And then the Lakers have Luka and LeBron and another year together. And they solved their issues at big. They got DeAndre Ayton. So how competitive are the Warriors going to be against these groups? I don't know. I didn't even mention the team they lost to in the playoffs. The Timberwolves, they're still out there. The Mavericks, they got Cooper Flagg coming in as well. So there's a lot of Titans in the Western Conference. Can Golden State compete with them? That's yet to be determined. And who knows? Maybe we won't know that until they end up trading Jonathan Kuminga if that ends up happening. What do you guys think? Can the Warriors win the West next year? How optimistic is Dub Nation right now? Yes or no? Let me know down in the comments section. And that will do it for today's edition of Warriors Today by Chat Sports. Lock us in as the #1 spot for Warriors content all offseason long. We're in the dog days right now. If you're watching this video, you're an absolute sicko. Give me a GSW down in the comments section. I'll be replying and hearting those comments. See you guys in the next one. And as always, let's go Dubs.